As of February 2021, Tesla controlled a whopping 79% of the EV car market in the US. At this point, there's no question that Tesla is going to be one of the biggest players within the EV industry. Most legacy automakers are following Tesla into the EV market, but this is more out of necessity as opposed to choice. There is one legacy automaker, however, who is ahead of the curve and looking to capitalize on the massive transition throughout this decade, and that's of course Ford. So here's why Ford may very well be Tesla's biggest challenger moving forward. Starting off, one of the key reasons for Tesla's massive success within the EV industry is that they were basically the first and only ones there. Legacy automakers have ignored the trend towards EVs for years, thinking that they can easily make the transition when the time comes, kind of like the tortoise and the hare. Similar to the hare though, many of these automakers were caught sleeping when Tesla was quickly approaching the finish line. Some legacy automakers are actually still refusing to wake up, like Toyota. But many others are scrambling to catch up to Tesla, and this is really where Tesla's advantage comes from. As legacy automakers rush to improve their battery technology and start production of EVs, Tesla is already in the market, selling hundreds of thousands of EVs every year. While Ford isn't quite at that level yet, they're closer to launching significant EVs than anyone else. Ford isn't playing softballs when it comes to their EVs. They're electrifying two of their top sellers, including both the Mustang and the Ford F150. The Mustang Mach E is directly targeted at the Model 3 and Y, and the Ford F150 is directly targeted at the Cybertruck. Ford started delivering the Mach E in the first quarter of 2021, and they were able to deliver an astounding 6,614 Mach E's in the first quarter alone. To put that into perspective, Tesla only delivered 222 Model 3s during their first quarter. In terms of their trucks, Ford is looking to start deliveries of the F150 Lightning next spring. Tesla is looking to start deliveries of the Cybertruck at the end of this year. But the Austin Gigafactory, in which the Cybertrucks will be built, is still under construction itself. So it's very possible that we don't see Cybertrucks being delivered till spring or even summer of 2022. Either way though, Ford is right behind Tesla when it comes to launching a pickup truck. Now, I'm not trying to knock on Tesla here. The Model 3 was their first mass production vehicle, and Tesla is literally having to build a new factory to start Cybertruck production. So it's understandable that we see production and delivery delays. The point here though is that Ford is hitting the ground running, and it doesn't look like they're stopping anytime soon. Not only is Ford one of the first legacy automakers to launch a significant EV, but they're also being extremely competitive. In terms of price, the closest competitor to the Mach E is the Model 3, with the Mach E coming in at $43,000 and the Model 3 coming in at $40,000. You can actually get the Mach E for cheaper than the Model 3 because of the $7,500 tax credit that's only applicable to the Mach E. That is only a limited time offer though. In terms of performance, the two are basically identical. The Model 3 has a 0 to 60 of 5.3 seconds, while the Mach E has a 0 to 60 of 5.2 seconds. Similarly, the cars have pretty similar ranges, with the Model 3 coming in at 263 miles and the Mach E coming in at 230 miles. This same comparison can be made with the F150 Lightning and the Cybertruck as well. The base levels of both vehicles start at $40,000, with the Cybertruck boasting a range of 250 miles plus and the F150 boasting a range of 230 miles. However, there is a possibility that Ford is actually sandbagging their range estimates. According to Marcus Brownlee, the estimated range is calculated with 1,000 pounds of cargo. So, without the cargo, the standard range may be closer to 350 miles, and the extended range may be closer to 460 miles. Now, this still doesn't quite match the Cybertruck's top range of 500 miles, but these aren't bad numbers by any means. In fact, you may even be able to get greater range for a smaller price with Ford, especially if you're early and able to redeem the $7,500 tax credit. Something else to note is that all F-150 Lightning models come with a dual motor configuration. Each of Ford's motors aren't as strong as Tesla's, but this does give you the benefit of all-wheel drive. So, as you can see, Ford has done a splendid job when it comes to matching Tesla in terms of price and performance. And personally, I think that this is the key to winning the EV industry. You can talk all you want about how EVs are better for the environment and why we should switch to sustainable energy. But money talks way more than humanitarian efforts. The day that electric vehicles are not only cheaper to maintain, but also cheaper to buy than gas counterparts, it's game over for ICE vehicles. You won't have to go around and convince your friends and family to switch to electric. The next time they buy a car, they're going to buy electric whether you like it or not. With that being said, I think Ford is just as close as Tesla to making EVs cheaper than ICE vehicles. So they're gonna be pretty well positioned for when that date does finally come. But we're just getting started with Ford's strengths. Aside from already being in the market and being competitive, Ford has an unbelievably strong customer base. Americans love pickup trucks, and I mean they love pickup trucks. And Ford is hands down the winner when it comes to American pickup trucks. The Ford F-150 has been the best-selling truck in America for not 1 or 2 or even 5 years, but 44 years straight. What's even crazier is that the full F-Series lineup is the best-selling vehicle of any kind in the US, period. So, the Cybertruck has absolutely no chance against the F-150. Now, this isn't to say that the Cybertruck won't sell well, but the thing to note is that the Cybertruck appeals to a completely different demographic. I know quite a bit of people with pre-orders for the Cybertruck, and not a single one of them has any use for the vehicle itself. In my experience, the primary demographic behind the Cybertruck are people with high-paying tech jobs working at tech companies, and they're buying the Cybertruck because they think it looks sick. They have no use for the truck's towing or payload capacity. The heaviest load they'll put into the bed of the truck will likely just be a handful of golf clubs every weekend. So, for the most part, the people who actually use pickup trucks for the utility aren't that interested in the Cybertruck. Honestly, I don't think they're even that interested in the F-150 Lightning either. These people love their gas trucks, and they're not going to switch until electric trucks are undeniably better. And when that stage does come, with the F-150 Lightning on the market, I'm not sure why they wouldn't just stick with Ford like they have been doing for the last 44 years. The same thing can be said about Ford's Explorer and Expedition series as well. Americans who love their big trucks and SUVs are likely to just stick with Ford or Chevy or Ram or whoever they're loyal to. And that brings me into the next advantage for Ford, which is that they have scalability on their side. All legacy automakers have the advantage of scale, as they're already producing millions of cars per year. But once again, it doesn't look like any of them are really leveraging this advantage except for maybe Volkswagen. Volkswagen, however, is not that big of a competitor to Ford when it comes to pickup trucks and SUVs. So their transition, or lack of transition, doesn't really affect Ford. The legacy competitors for Ford are really only GM and Ram. It looks like the earliest we'll see an electric Silverado is 2023 and probably 2024. Meanwhile, the earliest we'll see a Ram pickup truck is 2024. So, Ford will have a full year, if not 2 years, to build up production and deliveries against legacy competitors, meaning that they'll leverage their scalability the best. But more than all of this, by far the biggest advantage going for Ford is survival. It's no secret that Ford hasn't been doing well financially for quite some time. Even before the pandemic started, Ford was losing billions per quarter. But an even bigger problem is their unbelievably massive debt. On a good year, Ford is able to profit $5 to $7 billion. But that's nothing when you consider that they have $160 billion in debt. Even if they profited $10 billion per year, it would take 16 years of throwing everything they make at the debt to pay it off, and that's not even considering interest. In terms of American automakers though, Ford is the only automaker that has never gone bankrupt aside from Tesla. Ford has been around for 100 years longer than Tesla, so I think that's way more impressive. Ford has literally survived the banking panics of the 1900s, the Great Depression, the World Wars, the oil crisis, the inflation crisis, the rise of foreign automakers, the dot-com bubble, the financial crisis, and the pandemic. I highly doubt that the EV transition is the shift that's going to wipe out Ford. In fact, I think the executives at Ford are looking at the EV transition as a golden ticket out of the debt hole and back to prosperity. While the rest of the legacy automakers slowly transition to EVs, Ford is going all in. They plan to invest $22 billion into EVs by 2025 and $4 billion into AVs by 2023. To put that into perspective, Ford only has a total of $30 billion in cash. So Ford is literally going all in. Ford's CEO says that he's confident in their EV strategy and that Ford won't cede in the future to anyone. Ford is no doubt throwing a Hail Mary, and I believe that it's going to pay off. Some of the best outcomes come from situations in which a person or company has no choice but to succeed, as we've seen with Tesla, Domino's, Best Buy, Dell, Microsoft, Marvel, SpaceX, and of course, Apple. All of these companies have made unbelievable transitions from their former selves, and I think 10 years from now, we'll be saying the same thing about Ford. Now, do I think Ford will overtake Tesla? Well, they might overtake Tesla in the pickup and SUV markets, but I doubt they'll overtake Tesla as a company. Tesla simply has way too many things going for them outside of just selling cars. With that being said though, I think Ford has an extremely bright future ahead of them. Many investors have started to realize this, and this has led to them bidding up Ford stock 70% since just the beginning of this year. But even with that, Ford is only worth $59.6 billion with a modest PE ratio of just 14.83. So, if Ford really is able to leverage the EV transition, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ford boasting a valuation of $200 billion or more within the next 10 to 15 years. So, if you've been discounting Ford, you might want to give the company a second look. After all, Domino stock outperformed Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google between 2010 and 2018. We may very well see a similar situation with Ford in the year 2030. Do you guys think that Ford can make a transformative comeback? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you guys think that Ford is underrated. And of course, consider joining our Discord community to suggest future video ideas, and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.